Okay, good morning, friends, and welcome to the Conscious Contact Big Book Study of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. My name is David, so hello, one and all. It's good to be here with all of you. And I've asked our friend Sean to read the AA preamble.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sean. I'm an alcoholic. AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Sean, thank you so much. And now I'm going to ask if everyone will join me in taking a moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholics in and out of the rooms, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, as I'm sure most of you know, we are a line by line big book study. We go very slowly through the text. The point of doing that really is to unlock the deeper message that's in the text. I always feel like when I'm on a traditional big book meeting, not that they're bad, but it's a lot like trying to drink from a fire hose. And what I found is that when I slow down, I really am able to absorb what our founders were intending when they wrote those words a number of years ago, and really discover, for me, it allows me to enter into a relationship with not just the text, but with the spiritual program of recovery that has transformed my sobriety, even in the last, several years, just after decades in the program. So I'm hoping some of you can get some of that as well. One of the things that I also found was helpful was, as we're reading through the text, to categorize it into 5 categories. And there you go: questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And what I find is that the text really falls, for the most part, falls into one of those 5 categories. The colors are the highlighters that I use. So if you look at my big book where we are up till now, it's all, looks like a rainbow there with all the different colors. But it really, more than just making it very colorful, what it does is it really allows me to very quickly reference what I'm reading, and how to not just apply it to my own life, but more importantly, share it with newcomers, and really help people get up and running with this spiritual program of recovery as quickly as possible, in a way that is maybe separate or apart from some of the I don't know. I don't want to be negative, but some of the lore that has cropped up over the years that we hear in meetings. Not that meetings are bad, okay? So, anyway, so the format is I will speak until about 7, and we're going to go through the text. We're going to do about a little over a page today, and because and actually we're going to get through. We'll touch on 3 different steps in the program, and then we'll open it up. Also, FYI, I think everybody knows this. The meeting is being recorded. Only my part, that is. So we keep an archive, and there's a link in the chat of the YouTube link that you can use if you want to re-listen, or you miss a meeting or something like that. Anyway, let's jump in. We are on page 75 at the top, and Bill has sort of introduced us to the fifth step, and we're going to dive into it. And I just want to sort of summarize, because I think we're at a really a critical turning point, especially because we're going to be entering steps 6 and 7 in a little bit. And I think most of us, if not all of us, have been present in, we've read the 12 and 12, where it talks about the sixth step, and this, being the step that separates the men from the boys, and why is that such a critical turning point? And I think that, and the 12 and 12 talks about certain reasons for that, but I think that there are also key spiritual reasons and key turning points or decision points that we need to come to in our recovery of the underlying ideas about, or our underlying understanding about our recovery, that we really need to reconsider or deepen when we get to 6 and 7. So I want to touch on that, but just backing up a little bit, we are going to touch on part of step 5 today. So one of the things that we saw last week, and we'll see again today, is as we move forward in our step work, and we're finishing step 5 and moving into step 6 and 7, the process, as I said, now seems to demand we become very clear of the 2 critical points. And hold these in mind as we talk today, and that is, first, the role of our higher power, and the role that our higher power plays in the recovery process, and second, our understanding of how that higher power creates spiritual transformation in our life, how almost, if you will, the mechanics of spiritual transformation or recovery from alcoholism happens. And we started to see a bit of this in terms of the relationship with the higher power in last week's text, where Bill appears to suggest that the person who is to hear our fifth step, they don't necessarily have to be a highly knowledgeable person about AA. They don't have to be an AA expert. Now, that may have been because at the time there really weren't a lot of AA experts, or people with long-term sobriety. But also, one of the things that he does point out is the key elements that you want to find in that person are discretion and understanding. They need to be able to keep a secret, and they need to have a basic understanding of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. But they don't need to be an expert in the AA program. So we're not really given any clear indication as to why Bill makes this stipulation. But our founders seem to, not believe that expertise is important. And why is that? Why do they say, like, it's not as important? And I think one reason for this could be that, now remember, when we're doing the fifth step, it's really easy, and I've done this many, many times when I've done a fifth step, is to really make that process about a two-person relationship, me and my sponsor, okay? But it's not a two-person relationship. It's not a two-person interaction. It's a three-person interaction. And the third person, of course, being our higher power. And I think one of the things that the founders are getting to is that the key authority, the person that we're really speaking to in the fifth step, is not the sponsor, is not the other person. It's our higher power. And let's just kind of think about that for a second. The fifth step is, and so why can't we take it directly to God, and our text talks about why we can't take it directly to God, because our process of rationalization, our inner rationalizer is just so powerful that we need that other person there for accountability purposes. And what I found, and I don't know if anybody else has found this, is that it's only when I'm being completely honest with another person that I am able to be completely honest with myself and with my higher power. So this notion about the higher power being the one that's really the main authority when we're doing the fifth step, I think it's important because it leads us to the second point. And that has to do with, how does God create, or how does God operate the mechanics of spiritual transformation? Or does he kind of give us this like extra stuff that we need? Is it or is it an additive process, like things are layered on, like here you are, Mr. or Ms. AA, and here's an extra layer of recovery that we're going to put on top of who you are. Sort of like, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I'm thinking of anybody remember clear plastic slip covers on your furniture? It's like, I remember those. And in the summertime you'd be sweating and you'd stick to them, but that's a whole other story. It's not an extra layer. It's about taking away. And because remember, the book talks about removing the things that are blocking us from God. And so, does God transform us by adding things such as awareness, insight, self-knowledge, etc.? Does he add these things to us, or by taking things away, things such as resentments, fear, self-sufficiency, old ideas, all of that? See, up to this point in our reading, everything would seem to suggest that the answer is that recovery from alcoholism is based on a process of peeling away the old and getting rid of defective ideas so that our deeper spiritual identities can be accessed. And what that really does is, rather than make the main driver of our sobriety and our progress our sponsor, it really puts it back in our laps. It's based on the integrity with which we pursue that relationship with God. And I think that's key, and we'll see that. So let's jump into the text on page 75. We're at the top, and we've decided who we're going to share our fifth step with. And the first several lines of this paragraph are in green for direction. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have written an inventory, and we are prepared for a long talk. Now, I'll share the following with apologies to my sponsor, who heard my most recent fifth step, and granted, I did try to keep it short, but it was 7 hours. And we had to order in food, and we had to take a nap break. It was really brutal. I'm kidding. But it was 7 hours, and I remember the first real one I did was 3 hours, and because I had written a lot, and I really took, and probably because I was in so much pain, I wasn't going to leave any stone unturned. I was meticulous, and then he should realize that, and then the rest of, and I'm back in the text, the rest of this paragraph then is promise. He should realize we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Now, why do I have that as a promise? I have that as a promise because I believe that it is only through the grace of God that we are able to see the fifth step as a life and death errand rather than a chore, rather than a have to, rather than something to be avoided. It's the grace of God. And just like it says about willingness throughout the text, if we don't have that willingness, if we don't have that level of desperation, we need to pray for it until it comes. Because I think if we're just checking a box with our fifth step, I don't think we're really going to experience the spiritual fruit. We need to be usefully and joyously sober. So we are engaged upon a life and death errand. And another promise here, finishing out the paragraph, most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. And again, that speaks to the person we're choosing for this process. The first sentence in the next paragraph is direction. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Folks, I don't know. I've done multiple fifth steps. Some of them have been sort of issue related. Several of them have been down in the dirt. Some of you may that may baffle some people to what am I talking about? But it's like I've really gotten into the muck sometimes, and even my most recent one, down in the muck, and it was really a process of me of where I really did have to pocket my pride. Because I had to set aside the person that I thought I had become through 3 decades of sobriety. And I had to be willing to put that all aside and say things to another person that were, that felt humiliating and embarrassing. And I think, I wouldn't say that that's a have to for a fifth step, but man, if you're not brushing up or diving into a place like that, I just don't think we're going to be freed from the process. And then the rest of the paragraph is reward. Because now what are we coming upon? We're coming upon the fifth step promises. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. I'll come back to that. I'll just read through it, and then I'll come back to that, because I think there's an interesting relationship for us in the delight and other things. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone and at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit, capital S, of the universe, capital U. I'm thinking as I'm reading that about how many times over the years I have shared, especially early on, I've raised my hand and I have shared in AA meetings about struggling with things such as fear, lack of serenity, embarrassment, shame, lack of acceptance for myself. Feeling God was far away. And I'm thinking every time I was baffled about that. And this paragraph is telling me exactly what I need to do in order to remedy those problems. It's right there. It's right. And that is why what we just read, that is exactly why I am firm in my conviction that the real process of recovery is one not of laying on knowledge, insight, whatever you want to call it, but it is peeling away. It is taking away. It is learning that even if we did not have a good childhood, that we're not created by our parents. We're created by God. And God made us from perfection. And the fifth step is one critical way we get closer to that perfection that God intended for us. So now, fears fall from us. Nearness of the Creator. Spiritual conviction. And probably, and I will say, when I did my most recent fifth step, these feelings did not leap upon me. I felt, it was a lengthy process, and I was exhausted, and I needed. There was all the stress of having to call the ambulance for Brian because he was having a nervous breakdown after he heard what that's a joke. Sorry. Brian was fine. Brian went out to a concert and celebrated afterwards. I'm probably disclosing too much. Anyway, feeling on the broad highway. So moving on. What we have now is more direction. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart. We know Him better. That's direction, although that last paragraph there, we thank God, you could also see that as a reward, a promise, followed by more direction. Taking this book down from the shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. And what we're talking about there is we're talking about page 59. So now we're going to do a review. We're going to do a reflection. Because back to the first key point that we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting today is that the critical person, the critical entity, if you will, in the fifth step process is not the sponsor, is not the other person. It's our higher power. And now we are reflecting or meditating. This would be considered meditation. We're meditating on our progress up to this point. And now we have some questions. The rest of the paragraph is a question. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Every step that I've taken, when I've taken a step, it's changed my perspective. It's either enlarged or sometimes reversed my perspective on the steps I took before. And so now, having done the 5th step, I'm going to look at that process and steps 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to consider that. And what I'm going to do is really question myself. Okay, knowing what I know now, is my 2nd step solid? Is the 3rd step solid? Did I leave anything out of the 4th step? Here's what's interesting, and here's why I think that questioning is important. And I missed this until recently. That last sentence, have we tried to make mortar out of sand? And I put a link in the chat for this. I had no idea, because there are these masonry metaphors throughout the big book. And so I had no idea what that meant. It was just words to me, mortar without sand. But then I read, and there's a link in some, I got it from a construction blog, but it's the role of mortar, or excuse me, it's the role of sand when making mortar. Here's why I think that's critical. It's important to put enough sand when you're making mortar, because what sand does is sand helps avoid, it's the binding agent. It's what holds the concrete together, and it keeps it from shrinking, and it keeps it from cracking. Bottom line is it allows concrete to endure. So what they're asking is, have we just checked the box? Have we done what we can do to just get through the process? Or have we done this in a way that will last forever? That's what mortar without sand is about. And we're going to do, let's see if I can get through steps 6 and 7. If we can answer to our satisfaction, then we look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. That's explanation. Those 2 sentences. And now some questions. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them, every one? And then direction. If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. I believe that's pretty clear cut. When ready, we say something like this, and this is all direction. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. And of course, there has been a lot said and written about why, or pointing out that 6 and 7 are so monumental in our sobriety, yet there's so little room given to them in the big book. And what I've discovered, at least in my own journey, is that because really owning that prayer and going in depth into what that prayer means and what it's saying for me was one of the, if not the most monumental turning points in my sobriety. And I'm going to point out 2 things, and then we'll open it up. 1, remove the character defects which stand in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Meaning, from this point forward, God will only improve what allows me to bring benefit to others. That doesn't mean my life doesn't get better. But my life improving is secondary. Up till now, I've been doing sobriety in order to get further and further away from pain and discomfort. So now I need to become a little bit more willing to experience pain and discomfort if it will benefit others. Because that is the only way that I can get the deeper benefits of this program. Secondly, and I'll end with this, that last sentence took me, it took me about 10 years to figure out what was going on with that last sentence, because it seems to make no sense. Like, it seems like something that's tacked on at the end. Grant me strength as I go from here, out from here, to do your bidding. Amen. Why? Why ask for strength? I don't get it. I'm surrendering to you. I'm surrendering to you. That should be like, okay, good things are coming. Why am I asking for strength? And one day in meditation, it hit me, at least for me. You may not resonate with this. Because in the seventh step and in the seventh step prayer, I have to ask for strength. Because what I'm doing with the first part of that prayer is surrendering everything that I think makes me strong and protects me from the world. I become willing to surrender it all, so that I am no longer the source of my sobriety, and I am no longer the source of my strength. All strength comes from Him who can do everything. And that is why I believe Bill in the 6-step essay says that this is the step that separates the men from the boys. So with that, and there are some questions for reflection in the chat. I'll leave those to you to check out if you want to use those and as points for discussion. But I think we've got enough to chew on there, and so I'm going to open it up.